Welcome to Did I Do That? Come along with us as we renovate our house that was built in the 1960s, beginning with our outdoor area. We've already removed our old deck, and we're going to begin creating our dream outdoor space. So getting started here, you can see what this looked like before. It was just an exterior entrance to our house. We actually never used it, and at one point it was actually built over top of and used for a storage room. That we actually removed as part of tearing down the old deck. The old deck went up to the second floor of the house, as you can see in that first part of the video, and we actually are not going to rebuild it that way. We're going to just make it level with the ground the way that it is right now. And the first step of that was closing up this entrance, because obviously the deck is going to go almost all the way to the top of where this door was at, and we didn't use it anyway. So as you can see here, we're just starting the process of tearing everything out. The frame of this storm door was somewhat tricky to get out just because of whoever installed it. They seem to have stripped all the screws, and to make up for it, they just glued everything in. So it required us to score almost all of the edges. And you'll see me fight with the frame here for a bit. Tried to pry it out, even try again to get some screws out with the drill. And it was just a lot of work trying to get out a frame that someone put in, hoping that no one would ever try to take out. While you watch us struggle with this door frame, it would be a good time to introduce ourselves. My name is Grant and my wife's name is Gabby. We're just a couple of amateurs who try to save a little bit of money by doing projects ourselves. We've already done some projects in our house, and we hope that we can revisit those with you all in the future. But for now, hop along on this journey. Once we finally got that pesky storm door removed and got the regular door out as well, it was time to start building a frame to close this wall in. And you'll see here what I'm kind of doing is measuring in between the studs and trying to figure out how I wanted to build this frame. This is obviously kind of a strange scenario because we're just filling in where a door used to be. It's not a true wall, we're just filling it in. And so it gives you several options here depending on what you're going to hang and what you're going to put on the exterior and interior of the house. So right now I'm just looking to see, do I want to do 16 inches from the wall? Obviously that looked very funny, so we decided that we were just going to try to frame this as close to the middle as possible with our two studs being 16 inches apart. After getting the studs 16 inches apart in the middle, I went and got my level to make sure that where I had them lined up was correct. Obviously at this point nothing has been nailed or screwed in. Everything is just what I would call a dry fit, so it's more of making sure that everything is exactly where I want it to be. At this point, once we made sure that the studs were level, I took a marker and drew on the frame so that we could put it together the same way that it is right now. Obviously, you've got to put your frame together somewhere other than the doorway, so it's good to draw this, and I actually numbered them as well. So I drew exactly where I wanted the stud to go on the top and bottom boards. I wrote top and bottom on the top and bottom of the frame, and then I numbered the left side number 1 and the right side number 2. So in those little squares that I drew on those boards, I numbered them, and I numbered the stud as well, just to make sure once I carried them away to where I was putting it together that I was putting the boards exactly where I wanted them to ensure that I didn't have any issues once it was time to put the frame in. Here's a bit of a close-up, kind of showing you what I was talking about, where I numbered the one board 1 and then the other one 2. It's super simple, but it could actually save you a lot of trouble from making a mistake later on. The next step was to build the frame. So now that it was measured and I had my boards marked, all I did was line them up with the lines that I drew on them and simply inserted some screws into the top and bottom to connect the frame. The next step's either a lot of fun or it's a lot of heartache, testing to see if whether or not your frame was built correctly. In my case, fortunately, praise the Lord, it was built correctly. So as you can see here, you kind of got to wiggle it to get it in, make sure it's a good snug fit, and you're off to a good start if it's to a good snug fit. And the second step is just making sure that everything's level. Here's a good picture of the frame once it was attached securely to the doorway. The next step was installing the OSB on the exterior portion of the house. However, where this was in a doorway, it was somewhat of a deeper hole to fill, so what we had to do was to cut the OSB to size, put it where it was supposed to go, and then see how far it needed to come out. In order to accomplish this, we were planning on putting some blocks in between where the OSB was going to rest and the actual studs. As you can see here, we're kind of testing it to see how far out it needs to go. And then in a moment here, I hand Gabby a block over top of the board so that we can see whether or not it is thick enough for us to use. There's that board making its way over the top. Once Gabby made sure that that board was thick enough to give us what we needed for spacing on this OSB board, we went ahead and attached 4 of them, as you can see there in this video, and then it was time to attach the OSB, so we moved it into place. Once it was in place, we attached it with screws. We didn't use anything special here, just some regular outdoor grade screws, something that we knew was going to be able to weather the test of time and any potential moisture that could get in here. Here's a couple pictures once it was attached, and you'll see there's a little bit of light coming around the edges, so we applied some silicone around the edge just to ensure that all the moisture was kept out. The next step was to install the house wrap. As you can see, we got it from Lowe's, and you just attach it using staples and then you tape it at the seams. The next step here is attaching the piece of smart side panel siding that we bought. This is a cheap way to cover an exterior hole. Obviously it doesn't look the best, but this part's going to be covered anyway, so we figured it was the cheapest and most effective option to accomplish what we were hoping to do here. Here's a good still shot of it once it was attached. Moving on to the next day, the next step was installing the insulation. As you can see here, you install it with the cotton candy side out, the paper side in, and we just used a heavy-duty stapler to attach it. After the insulation was installed, it was time to start blocking in preparation for hanging the sheetrock. This allows your sheetrock to hang flush with your wall. We had to build it out a little over 3 inches to make sure that it was flush. Finally, we get to the last part of this project, which is hanging the sheetrock. As you can see here, we'd already cut the sheetrock at this point and put it into place, and then we began attaching it with drywall screws. Once the sheetrock was installed, it was time to begin mudding it. We used all-purpose joint compound, and as you can see here, time-lapse fortunately makes a 30-minute job look like a few seconds. And this is what the finished product looked like before paint. So as you can see here, this is what the deck looked like before we tore it down. And after we tore it down, we still had that little storage room over top of the door that we just replaced. And that's what that looked like once the deck was gone. Just a reminder of what the door looked like at the beginning of this video, and now after. Thanks so much for watching. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you for episode 2.